homework should be very much like what you did in class. If you were with Mr. Winslow, you might not have had quite as much practice, but it should be somewhat review from last year. You can use a calculator for this one, so you might want to pause the video and go grab one. First one, as some of you probably already know, 3/4, the decimal equivalent would be 0.75, but if you didn't on your calculator, you could do 3 divided by your denominator 4, and you will find out it equals 0.75. Once you've got that 0.75, it's fairly easy to make it into a percent. You just take those first two numbers. Sometimes you're going to need to round. All right, clear out your calculator. Next one, we've got 14 divided by denominator 16, and it equals 8.75. Here's one of those where I need to round now, just like we were practicing if you came to my group today. 5. Remember, if it's 4 or less, let it rest. If it's 5 or more, it's going to score. So we're going to look at our hundredths place there. 7's going to go up 1, so it will be 0.87 or 87 hundredths. And then as, oops, I did it wrong. The 7's going to go up, so that would make it 88 hundredths. And as a percentage, that would be 88%. All right, clear out your calculator. Our next one is 15, and we're going to divide it by 25. And you'll find out it equals 0.6. Remember, you can add a 0 on it if you want to. You don't need to, but as you change it to a percent, it does need to be 60%. It is not 6%, it is 60%, because we need those first 2 digits when we change it over to a percent. All right, so our next one, 17 divided by 20. And we've got 85 hundredths, which is the same as 85%. And our last one, in this top section here, we've got 3 divided by 8. And again, we're going to have to round it. So looking at that hundredths place, there's a 7. And then as in the thousands place, it's 5. So we need to round it up. So it becomes 0.38 or 38 hundredths. And as a percent, that will be 38%. All right, going to do a screen here so we don't get confused as to where we are. We'll stay together. And now it's asking you to do something on the back of this page. Explain how you could find the percent equivalence to 17/20ths without a calculator. So how could you do this if you didn't have a calculator? Hopefully you remember some things. 17/20ths. If you multiply by 5 over 5, as we've been doing in class, you will get 17 times 5. I need to do a little side multiplication. I don't know my 17s facts so well. It's 85, so I would have 85 over 100, and I could easily make that into 85 hundredths if I needed to. All right, so write that on the back, explain that. I'm going to erase it for now. Next, it's asking you to write the 5 fractions from problem 1 in order from least to greatest. So if you're looking just at the fractions over here, which one is our smallest fraction, which one is our largest? If it helps to look at the percents, look at the percents. Let's see if we can move it over here. Our percents, our smallest percent is going to be 38%, so that would be 3/8. I think it said least to greatest, didn't it? Yep. And then our next percentage as we go up, 60% is our next, and that was 15 over 25. Our next percent looks like 75, that was 3/4. Our next greatest percent would be 85%, which was 17 over 20. And our largest then would be 14 over 16. Katie spent 50% of her money on shoes for soccer. The shoes cost $65. How much money did she start with? Well, logic tells us we need to double it because 50% is half. So if we're going to find out the opposite, then we need to multiply. So 65 plus 65, or 65 times 2, however you want to look at it, is a 10. 130, so she must have started with $130 on that one. And then Tom got 70% of the questions correct on a music test. If he got 7 questions correct, how many answers must have been on the test? Well, if he got 70% and there were 7 questions, he must have gotten 7 out of 10, because 70% as a fraction would be 7 out of 100. Or you could write it as 7 over 10. These are equivalent fractions. So if you got 7, there must have been 10 questions. Then at the bottom, that's just regular division practice. I know you said you're getting good, but we want to make sure you remember it. I'm just going to do a little side dividing here. I'm going to close out my calculator. I don't think I need it anymore. So down at the bottom here, I'm going to change my colors up. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. If I can move this over a little bit. I know I'm writing on gray. I hope it shows up for you at home. I haven't checked. 975. Boy, that is awfully hard to see. See if I can find a little room over here. 975, much better. And I'm going to divide it by 10. Oh, kids, this is a lot like we did a couple nights ago, where you can just move your decimal over. But we can do it. We'll do it the long way. 10 goes into 9, not at all, but 10 does go into 97 about 9 times. 9 times 10 is 90. Subtract and you get 7, bring down your 5, and then we can say 10 times 7 is 70. Subtract and you get 5. So 97 and 5/10. I'm going to write it as a decimal. 5/10 is the same as half, or 0.5. I'm doing this on purpose because I want to show you that whenever you divide by 10, you just move this implied decimal here over one spot. And then you don't even have to do all that side division over there. Alright, our next one, we've got 975 divided by 20 this time. If you know a shortcut for this, go ahead and use it. I'm going to try and squeeze it in there. 20 times 4 would be 80. Subtract, and I get 17. Bring down the 5. 100, if it's times 5, 120, 140, 160. Subtract, and I get 15. So I could call that 48 and 15/20ths. And I hope some of you are recognizing, hey, that's not simplest form. I should reduce that. And yes, you actually should be reducing that. I know Angelina likes to reduce these. She knows how. Divide both of these by, probably 5 over 5 would be our best bet here. And you would get 3/4. So you can write it as 48 and 15/20ths, or 48 and 3/4, or some of you are probably going to write it as 48 remainder 15, and that would work too. I'm going to leave it remainder 15 for now. But I'm glad some of you are remembering how to do those other strategies. This one, we've got 975 divided by 30 this time. Are you noticing any patterns? Remember, if you know a way to do this a little quicker, go with it. 3 times 3 is 9, so 30 times 3 must be 90. Subtract, you get 7, bring down the 5. 30 times 2 will be 60. And I get a remainder of 15 again. 32 and 15/30ths, if you're writing it as a fraction, or remainder 15. Look, I've done it. I did it once as a decimal, once as a remainder, and this time I did it as a fraction. 15/30ths is the same as 32.5 or 32.5. Oops, now I wrote it wrong. I've got 5 in mind. 32.5 for that one. And then our last one. 975. Gotta write it right. Just like I tell you, you gotta always double check. Make sure you write it right. Don't want to make a mistake. That's just simple. Divided by 40. 4 times 2 is 8, so 4 times 20, or 40 times 2 will be 80. Subtract, you get 17. Bring down your 5. Let's see, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20. It must be a 4 here. 40 times 4 will be 16 with a 0. Subtract, and I get a remainder of 15. So on this one, 24 and 15/40ths, and you can reduce that one. Divide them both by 5, and you get 3/4, or you could just leave it as 24 remainder 15, or you can leave it as that fraction that's not simplified, 15/40. That works too. All right, thanks for working with me.